Well, I'm afraid the day has come. I usually just try to make videos that help people, teach people things, and doesn't divide anyone. But today, we have to talk about politics. Specifically, this is a topic that divides society into two, and that is to Figma or not to Figma. And by that, I mean to just skip design, hop straight into development, and just kind of tweak your styles as you go. Now, I am both a designer and a developer. I started my career as a designer and then I slowly shifted more and more into development, but I still do design. And I work on web projects which require me to come up with the idea, do the design, and develop it all on my own from start to finish. So, this is a debate that holds very near and dear to me because it directly impacts my way of working. And it seems like everyone's kind of picked their side on this debate already, and it seems like more or less the general consensus is that starting in something like Figma or Sketch is just the way to go. It's inherently better, and that is what you should do. Me, on the other hand, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I don't think it's necessarily the best way to go. And in fact, probably 95% of the web projects that I work on, I don't actually touch Figma. I just hop straight into Webflow, into WordPress, into whatever I'm developing it in, and just build it and tweak the designs as it goes on. And for me, I think it is inherently better. So, to the designers who've cracked open the comment section, hold off and hear me out throughout this video. So anyways, here's the deal. Here's why I skip Figma and hop straight into development. First things first, time. The design process is a significant part of any web project, and by cutting it out, I just saved a whole bunch of time. I get a lot of hours back at the end of my day, which I can use for other things that are perhaps a lot more productive than just making a fancy design. And besides the time-saving benefit of just skipping the design process, there's one other thing that people don't think about as much, and that is the development time saved. Why is it that every single Figma design seems to have a slider in it? Well, makes perfect sense. Sliders look nice, and the designer is sitting there dragging over an arrow and saying, hey, this is a slider. Now, you as the developer, it's not that simple. Usually, having a slider on your page is going to make the page take double the amount of time. But the designer, or even you while you're designing, aren't quite thinking about that. You're more just thinking about how am I going to make this look good? So the designs that you will produce by doing it in a development environment are going to be a lot simpler and easier for you to develop, which again is going to push up your getting started timeline way faster. And along with that, using Figma or Sketch or anything like that just leads to more opinionated designs. For example, let's say you copied your homepage to an about page and you're just kind of tweaking things up, playing around, seeing how things look. You might raise the button up by 1 pixel because it just takes you 1 click to move that button up. But for the developer, it's not just 1 click. You have to create a class, you have to add the styles. And again, if every single page has a different combo class on it, it's going to start to get messy and you're going to have a lot of CSS very, very quick. Whereas if you were just designing and developing at the same time, you'd probably just look at that and immediately go, nope, I don't need to do that. I don't need to raise the button. It's not going to make a significant difference. I'm just going to leave it as is. So not only is skipping Figma probably going to save you a lot of time now, it's also probably going to save you a lot of time in the future when you're maintaining your project. But here's the thing. That creativity that Figma affords you is a double-edged sword. Like I said, on one hand, you are going to end up creating more complex designs because you are not bound within the walls of development. You can just drag things around and see how they look. But at the same time, that restriction means you're not going to experiment as much. So while you are going to launch much quicker, at the end of the day, you are going to be probably left with a design that is a lot more just generic feeling and doesn't quite feel like it's all that nice. So here's the thing. Like I said, I prefer hopping straight into development. Now, I'm in a bit of a unique situation. So I used to be an agency owner, and we made high quality marketing sites for companies that were paying a good chunk of change. And if you're doing something similar to that, I would not recommend skipping design whatsoever. Your clients paid you to get the best looking website, and that design process is going to significantly help make that a reality and get them that beautiful website that they paid you for. Whereas if you just hop straight into development, they're probably going to end up with something pretty generic. Now, I'm in a bit of a unique situation. I used to have an agency and that used to be my job. Now I work for MemberStack, and my primary job at MemberStack is to make demos of how our product works so that other people can learn how to use MemberStack. And the thing is, we benefit from getting a lot of demos live. It makes sense to us to get a whole bunch of different templates, tutorials, and explainers out there. And at the end of the day, whether or not they actually have some crazy, beautiful design doesn't really affect our bottom line very much. But what does affect our bottom line is the speed at which we release these demos. In fact, it's actually worse for us to have an opinionated design because these things are templates that people are going to use and change. So our templates are actually better if they're a more generic and standard design that people can easily adapt to their own style. And that right there is why it's so much better for me to just completely skip the design process, because at the end of the day, it leads to me making things faster, distributing things quicker, and it's not really hurting at all in the design process. Now, my job and my situation is probably a bit unique, and I'm guessing very few people watching this have a similar role in their company. That being said, these kinds of situations and these kinds of projects are not unique at all. Perhaps you have a lower budget client, or maybe you don't even know your client's budget. You can ask them, hey, are you just looking for a nice professional website, or do you want something to be fully custom from the ground up? And the thing is, a lot of clients, from my experience, simply just don't care. They want a nice website that shows what their business does if somebody goes to it. They don't necessarily need the fanciest, most beautiful thing. And by cutting out the design process and perhaps even using something like a UI kit, you might be able to give this client a quote in the range of $2,000 to $3,000 instead of the maybe 8 to 15 you were going to quote them for a custom website. And the thing is, again, in this client's back pocket, it doesn't make a difference which way their design is. So you can do better work for your clients in some cases by skipping the design process. The key at the end of the day is just to understand what kind of project you're working on, whether speed or creativity is more valued in that project. And that is how you should look at it when you're approaching it. Like I said, almost all of my projects, speed is more valued over creativity. But if I have a project where creativity is more valued, I am going to hop into Figma because I'm fully aware of how much better your designs are actually going to be if you start in a design tool rather than start with development. With that being said, I hope this video made sense to you. I hope it shed some light, and I hope it allows you to do better work in your career. I'll talk to you soon and have a great day.